Listen up, get ready, I'm not gonna take no more. There's a revolution, a revelation going on in my soul. Buckle up, get ready, we're not gonna sit back.
Citizens of the world, welcome back to Live from the Heartland for the week of July 25th in the year 2026. And my next guest is someone who I met many years ago, probably 1967, I believe, and it was at the Students for Democratic Society office in Los Angeles. The one and only Mike Klonsky, who has gone on to be an educator, certainly an activist, a radio host, and an all-around wonderful human being. So good day to you, Michael Klonsky.
And back to you, Michael James. It's been a joy making this journey alongside of you over the last 60 or 70 years, however many it is.
It's going to be a long time. I remember we all went to the old Soviet Union together, too. That was quite a trip. We had a good time. We traveled around. We played baseball with the young, aspiring baseball addicts from the Soviet Union. And I don't remember what the highlight of the trip for you was, but for me, it was when I hit a double swinging blindly at a pitch from a Soviet Olympic javelin thrower, the pitcher, when I hit a double in Donetsk.
Nobody can ever forget that hit, Michael. It's still, I'm sure the Russian athletes still recall and go down in the annals of Russian baseball history.
It was we were in the press and everything over there, and they turned out a number of people. We had a good time. You've been doing a radio show on Lumpen Radio, 105.5 FM, called Hitting Left with Mike Klonsky. Sometimes it used to be Hitting Left with the Klonsky brother when your brother Fred is in on it. And we're a little bit later, we're going to talk to Ed Marzuski, who is the guy who put that station together. So you're welcome to stick around after this first interview. But let's talk about a book you just turned me on to. It's called Cuba, the Capital of 21st Century Communism. And I think this is important because all of a sudden we hear particularly Trump and other Republicans talking a lot about communism, the Soviet Union certainly isn't communist anymore. There is China, which has some roots in that movement. But Cuba has held out. And they're getting attacked big time by Marco Rubio, Trump, etc. Tell us a little bit about this book you've discovered and what's in it.
Well, it's actually, Michael, it's a State Department report.
Okay,
and
well, sort of a book.
Yeah, sort of a book. It's long enough to be a book. And it... I guess the purpose of it is to try to portray little Cuba as the center of the world communist movement, including here within the United States, going back to you and I's participation in the New Left back in the 60s, and putting all that on Cuba, saying that Cuba was responsible for everybody from Robert Williams, from the Republic of New Africa, who wrote the great book on Negroes with Guns and Radio Free Cuba. And but the real purpose of it is to claim that the communist menace here in the United States, sprung forth by Cuba, is now become the number one enemy of American people and the main danger to the United States, even a greater threat to the United States than Nazi Germany was in World War II or what have you. In other words, this is a throwback to the McCarthy period and this Cold War kind of rhetoric that came out of the government. And the real purpose is to create a diversion away from the issues that are facing the American voters coming into this midterm elections, and trying to use red baiting, red baiting the Democratic Party of all people.
Yeah, they're saying that the commies are in the Democratic Party big time.
They've taken it over. The communists have taken over the Democratic Party, and the Democratic Party has been Bolshevized, they say, in this report. And I'm laughing because it would be hilarious if it was not so dangerous. And they're launching a new anti-communist crusade, and they're making Cuba. They're painting Cuba as the center of it, and that's about a different thing altogether. That's about that lets us know that all this stuff about Venezuela and the kind of capturing of Venezuela was really strategically directed at Cuba, and because Venezuela was a lifeline to Cuba in terms of energy and things like that, and now they're predicting, at least Trump is predicting, that by the end of the year, Cuba will have fallen. And so there's kind of a dual threat here. One is to the Trump opposition being red baited. And, when red baiting means this anti-communist myth that there's a commie under every bed, and that's the main danger to the United States. That means we can suspend all civil rights like they did during the McCarthy period, all human rights, begin rounding up people, getting them fired from their jobs, arresting leaders of groups like that are in the left today, like DSA, et cetera, who they name specifically. And the thing about this report is it names names. So I haven't seen the whole list yet, but it's everybody from Bernie Sanders to AOC and to who knows. Maybe you're on it, Mike. I don't know, but it's supposed to be anybody who's connected to Cuba, and it's kind of like the Nixon's enemies list, but really directed towards Cuba and Cuban influence. So that's where we're at right now in terms of the midterm elections.
Yeah, I'm a little surprised that they've gone back to such a earlier period. Like, you talk about the 50s and red baiting, with Senator Joseph McCarthy up there in Wisconsin, where anyone who was working for better schools was called a communist. And there is somebody in the White House who probably has really studied Joseph McCarthy real carefully and is trying to use that as a way for Trump, or at least the Republicans, to save some power after the midterm elections and beyond.
Yeah, and there's a big story about this in the New York Times today, a very critical story of Trump and the MAGAs about the new red baiting, Red Scare campaign. So when you get a chance, check out the New York Times story today. I think actually Bill Ayers sent it to me this morning, so I haven't had a chance to read it all the way through. But the Cubans are responsible for creating the weathermen, DSA, SDS, the Black Panther Party, and probably your group, Rising Up Angry. I'm sure you were getting directives from Cuba every day to tell you it's time to rise up against capitalism.
Use more guidance from Cuba and others. In the report, which you turned me on to, I went through it, and it's long, and there's a lot of detail, and they have a lot of information that is interesting, but their interpretation of it is totally screwed up. But in it, they attack and talk about Pastors for Peace. They talk about the National Lawyers Guild, the Student Nonviolent Coordinating Committee, Code Pink, and Medea Benjamin. And they go after someone who went to high school with your high school in L.A., Karen Bass, who is current mayor and running for mayor in Los Angeles again. And they point out that she went to Cuba, I think, with the Venceremos Brigade, as did Antonio Villagrosa. How do you say that? Villagrosa, who was also mayor of L.A. And I was surprised that they had both gone to Cuba. And then I remembered that Bill de Blasio, who was the mayor of New York, had gone to Nicaragua. So I looked up if he went to Cuba or not. He did with his fiancée in 1994. And then later he met in 2019, he met with the Cuban president, Miguel Diaz-Canel. So
what about our former governor, Ryan? that well-known too, communist. Right? Well-known communist governor, Republican governor, who went to Cuba, and
he did, and he's the only Republican I've ever voted for, and because he was really good about prisoners, got rid of the death penalty, and was at least a decent human being compared to many other goppers. GOP, grand old party.
I just want to a quote from the New York Times. The closing sentence in the New York Times is, "The president's attempt to drum up a third Red Scare," third meaning going back to the Palmer raids and Sacco and Vanzetti being number one, the Cold War number two, and now the president's attempt to drum up a third Red Scare is certain to fail, says the New York Times. If it matters, if it's interesting, it's only because it gives us a glimpse into the stunned imagination of a man who seems to value only the worst this country has to offer. So the New York Times is predicting that this Red Scare will fail. And I believe it's true if you look at what they did to how they tried to stop the Mamdani campaign in New York and all the races recently won by left candidates around the country. I think this Red Scare and this red baiting attack on the movement is going to fail. It's kind of like the last refuge of a scoundrel. You know that famous quote about patriotism being the last refuge of a scoundrel. That was Samuel Johnson, the great writer from 100 years ago. But I think he meant that the way patriotism was misused by politicians for their own gain. I think you can substitute now anti-communism is the last refuge of the scoundrels, people like Trump, who are now just trying to use communism as a scapegoat for their own failures and for the anger that people have for the MAGAs now coming into the midterm elections.
They make connections to democratic socialists, and we know that democratic socialists are not only taking heat from the right wing and the Republicans, but from some Democrats. And
oh yes, of course, yeah.
And it's I was talking to somebody recently, and they were a little concerned that, which is not unlike probably the Republicans, but that some DSA candidates might win in the primaries, but not be as good candidates in the general election, which is an issue. It's a possibility. What's your take on that?
Well, I mean, the leadership of the Democratic Party going back 20 years has been more worried about the left within the party taking control of the reins of the party, the money of the party, and the power than they were afraid of Trump and the MAGAs. And that continues to be the case today. They're much more worried about the likes of AOC and the Squad and Mamdani than they are. They attacked them much worse than the Republicans did. And they're still doing it because it's complicated, all the reasons why. I mean, part of it is policy towards Israel.
That's the bottom line one, though. That's the one that really, that I've been saying, and I think when I had you on the show last time, I asked you about that, that you have a situation where the Democratic mainstream is supporting Israel, and the younger voters who are necessary to ending possible victories are critical of Israel's behavior in Gaza. And it's still.
I would just correct you there about the Democratic mainstream. According to all the polls, the Democratic mainstream supports cutting off military aid and aid
You're
to
correct.
Israel.
I meant the leadership types rather than the rank and file.
Well, you're talking about Schumer and these folks, Schumer and Clinton, Hillary Clinton, and these people who are pro-war with Iran and pro-genocide in terms of Gaza. And the rank and file in the Democratic Party opposes them, and that's what's so frightening to them. They want to hang on at all costs to their reign on the machinery of the Democratic Party, and so that for the primaries, that's the big battle. Now, whether who can provide the strongest opponent to Trump and the Trump supported candidates is another story. I don't think the Democratic leadership has much to stand on there, since they lost. They lost to Trump in the last election and threw the House and the Senate into the hands of the MAGAs. For them to claim that they're the best, have the best chance of beating them in November, it seems to me a ridiculous argument to make. In some cases, we got to support regular Democrats, I think, Mike.
Right.
There's got to be a united front campaign against Trump coming into the midterms, and we can't allow the Democratic leadership to divide us the way they're trying to do.
Yeah, well, it's happening. I mean, up in Maine, where it looks like they're going to pick this logger to be the person to take over the run for the Senate, he basically came out and said he would not support Schumer. And I think that's been going on a number of places. I'm not sure about that Democratic candidate in Iowa, but there's what's your take on the feel among the people about where things are at? I'm an internal optimist, and I keep thinking, well, the base out there, the masses of people are going to see through all this malarkey that have been fed. But I don't know if I'll be right or not. I've been wrong in the past. I've been right in the past.
Well, there's two things here, Michael. The masses of people, if you want to put them into a big group like that, are mainly interested in the affordability of life, of being able to put food on the table for their families and to provide medical care, and but they're also concerned about war, and Trump has now overtaken the Democrats as the head of the war party, right. and his policies. I just read that the war. This was Hegseth talking. He says the war in Iran has now cost, I think, $39 billion.
Yeah, that's what he said yesterday when he was being grilled by Senator Murray, Dirksen. They were just all over this guy. And he got pretty flustered a few times.
Now, if you think about $39 billion, did I say million? $39 billion, and it's actually an undercount, because the cost of the war to the American people can't just be measured in the money that the Pentagon is spending. It also has to do with rising prices, with with general affordability, tariffs, things like that. So American people are fed up with this. And if you run as a Trump endorsed candidate, you're going to lose, most likely. And
we hope that happens in Arizona, where the Trump guy got the Senate nomination.
Yeah. Well, yeah. But I mean, if you're going to lose in the general election, because most of the general elections are going to be decided, I think, by they're going to be Trump versus anti-Trump elections, and that means that in the big cities like Chicago, like New York, Detroit, if you're running as a Democrat endorsed by Schumer, you got the same kind of problem.
The Michigan Senate race is like that.
That's right. And so, I'm really rooting for El Said there in Michigan and other left candidates, and I think they can win. I think the myth that they can't win the elections against Republicans is a false one, is ridiculous.
Well, we certainly hope so. Mike, we only got a minute left. How about you tell us about your radio show on Lumpen Radio that I'm, live from the Heartland is on Lumpen on Friday mornings at 9. Then comes, we follow Democracy Now! Then there's another show, and then you come on. So it's an action-packed Friday morning on Lumpen Radio.
That's right.
Well, other places too, but I'll save that.
We just celebrated the 10th anniversary of Lumpen Radio, WLPN 105.5 in Chicago, and streaming across the globe at lumpenradio.com. My show, this coming Friday, I'm going to have former Mayor Lori Lightfoot on the show, who has recently drawn fire from the MAGAs. Was a front page story in the Tribune this week. I don't know how she got dragged back into the national spotlight again, but I'm going to ask her on Friday. And I told her to be attacked by them is really a badge of honor, and that I was jealous. And the same thing with this anti-communist crusade and the attack on the New Left. They don't. How come I'm not on that list? I'm really upset. I'm going to write them a letter.
You're on enough lists already. Michael Klonsky, host of Hitting Left with Mike Klonsky. Thanks for coming on. It's always a pleasure to talk to you, to see you. And maybe we ought to go back to the old Soviet Union someday and check out how they're doing.
Yeah, I don't know if I don't know what kind of game they're playing there now. I don't think it's baseball.
I'm not rooting for them anymore. Okay, brother. We'll see you. Everybody else.